Okay, you're going to see how much I've memorized, which I haven't. But I do know that Chris is the VP of CX for ASAPP. He works with customers like JetBlue, Dish, and others to implement technology to improve engagement, lower costs, and increase agent efficiency, which is what we all want. Prior to ASAPP, Chris spent 20 years leading contact center strategy, technology implementation for Verizon and Altel, leading staff operations, managing desktop automation, and augmentation. Very impressive. But before we get started, do I need to find a new job for myself? I work in PR and communications. Am I going to be redundant?
Are you using AI?
A little bit.
Okay, I think you're good.
I'm good?
Yeah.
Okay, yay.
Honestly,
Shannon, we have jobs.
The only people that I would say really should be concerned are the people who are sort of putting their head in the sand and just refusing to use AI. It would be like looking back and saying, I'm going to refuse to use the internet. You know, nobody in their right mind would do that looking back 20 or 30 years. And so I think as long as we're all on the train using AI, learning how to get more out of it, you know, I'll even add, I think leaders who are refusing to equip their teams with these powerful tools should be at risk as well. And I've never said that to an audience before, but because it's obvious the people who aren't using AI, okay, they're going to get left behind. But I think as leaders, I would suspect there's a lot of leaders in this room, we need to be equipping our teams to get the most out of AI as well.
Yeah. So then if I were to ask you, because it's been really broad, and I know you guys have probably been to other sessions. How many of you have talked about AI in your other sessions? Quite a few, yeah. But if we were to drill it down and say, you know, what do you see the role of the human in an AI-led operation? Where do you see us going?
Yeah, I think I could give two parallel examples. I'll try to do this quickly because we don't have a ton of time. But if you think about, say, teachers in a classroom, you know, where the teacher historically has had to be the one who knows everything. In a world where we, the right way, put AI into the classroom, which we have a lot of things to figure out in terms of evolving our education system. Yeah. But in an environment where the teacher no longer has to be the one and only with all the right answers, it elevates the humanness, you know, sort of what we bring as humans, which is a lot of empathy, sympathy, compassion, all the things that you know that we uniquely bring. Think about the world of medicine. It's rapidly changing, whereas the doctor in the past, the ability to have that education, that knowledge, the ability to provide a diagnosis for any given, you know, symptom, has become sort of replaced with technology's ability to, so if you go get 3 opinions, you know, we used to go get a second opinion, you go get 3 opinions now, they all say the exact same thing because the technology is that consistent and that thorough. So the physician, instead of the physician being the product, sort of that bedside manner has become the product and the diagnosis is the feature. So again, that's another example of elevating the human, what we bring uniquely to the table. And even in the CX space, this is where I'm seeing roles reverse, where for the last 2 years, really until the last 18 months, for the last 4 years, I've really helped enterprises use AI to assist their human agents. Yep. And if you're still asking the question, how can I use AI to assist my agents, you're asking the wrong question. The question is, how can my humans bring what they uniquely bring, which is critical thinking, decision-making, empathy? How can I use my human agents to bring what they can only bring to assist the AI? So it's really a role reversal. And this is where sort of these doomsday scenarios of AI taking all our jobs is not accurate. It's just, to me, it's clickbait. Will the workforce fundamentally change? Yes, it will fundamentally change in big ways, but there's still a really important place for humans. And I think we would be well served to really make sure we're getting the best out of both worlds, which is humans and AI working together.
Yeah, and I think that leads to, you and I had a conversation about this, but when I was in the exhibitor area, I was kind of talking about, you know, different roles of people, and the one thing I don't think AI will be able to replicate is relationships and trust. And when we were talking about that, you had talked about trust. So can you tell me a little bit more about how that's a tenet for you?
Yeah, trust is like, and ASAPP has been on this journey for a long time. You know, ASAPP's been around for 10 years, and so we've always really place the agent front and center, where we were creating messaging platforms with ML and NLP before LLMs and GPTs were a thing. And so we've always had a high regard for the agent, which I started out as an agent 25 years ago. And so I've walked a few miles in those shoes, so I have a deep sense of empathy. And those jobs have only gotten harder. And so we as business leaders, we don't talk a lot about trust because trust is very, very difficult to measure. And I'll guarantee you, everybody in this room has a scorecard, and we're very good at measuring 100 different things. But I will tell you, based on my 6 years of experience at ASAPP, trust is the enabler of all of those things that we like to measure, whether it's cost, revenue, retention, all the things that we're responsible for as business leaders. So the question is how do we facilitate an environment of trust? And so I always break things up into 3 categories. It's people, process, or technology. How do we build trust with people so that those people no longer see AI as a threat, but they embrace it, they use it? Because without bringing our people along, we're not going to realize all the benefits that we know are possible with generative AI. Processes. Can the processes be trusted? The processes that we've used in a non-AI world are not the processes that will get us where we want to go. So how can we evolve our processes so that they can be trusted to produce the outcomes that we like to measure? And then the technology, I would say 2025 was very much a year of experimentation with all this new generative technology. 2026, I'm starting to see a shift from experimentation to real operational outcomes. Companies like I'll talk about in just a moment that I've been working with for 2 years on this are really starting to see their complete operating framework change, where they're fully embracing the shift from humans assisting AI, AI assisting humans to humans assisting AI, and they're starting to see the fruits of all of that. But you can only get there if you trust the people, process, and technology. I'll say more about that later.
No, why don't you tell us? Tell us the example.
I read a book some time ago, and I just remember the equation of trust. I think it was called The Speed of Trust. I think it was written by Covey. Competence plus character equals trust. And so character obviously sort of portends the human factor that comes into this. How can we as business leaders use technology to portend the brand that whichever company we work for, what is the brand voice and how reliable is it? How consistent is it? And that's the competency side. And so if we use technology to build trust, and the technology, I'll speak specifically of ASAP's customer experience platform, CXP, trust using the technology, particularly AI, you have to have input filters. You have to have input safety. So people will interact with your company and they know that they're interacting with AI. They'll say all sorts of things to try, what we call jailbreak. They're trying to get the AI to do things it wasn't programmed to do. These folks are everywhere. They're sort of fraudsters, people who have ill intent. You have to have input safety to protect against those people. You have to have output safety to make sure that what your AI is responding back to your customers is actually right. It's not something that's gone off the rails and it's all of a sudden going to do damage to your brand.
Right.
And so there's several factors within this, say, CXP. You have to have several factors from a technology perspective that will give you trust and reliability in everything that the AI is doing with the data that it's been entrusted with. Ultimately, we want to create the best customer experience. But from a trust perspective, it's not just customers. It's how are we building trust with our employees? What is the communication that is coming from the C-suite, the V-suite that says, here's how AI is going to make you better. Here's how, it's not about AI replacing your job, it's how I am upskilling, I am investing in you with tools for tomorrow to make you more successful. And then of course we all answer to shareholders. How are we returning value to our shareholders? You can't do 2 of the 3 and feel good about it. You have to do all 3. And I feel like these AI technologies, when we execute on everything that I mentioned, we will actually hit sort of that trifecta, which is building trust with customers, employees, and shareholders.
Okay, so then how do you sell this to a reluctant workforce? the people that think they're going to get
Sure.
replaced.
Well, think about it. I mean, the headlines for as long as I can remember have been AI is coming for our jobs. There may even be people in this room that think AI is coming for my job. That's
did.
how you started the conversation. And me having a daughter, I've got 2 kids at university, and we're having these conversations. And I tell them the same thing I've told all of you is like, be using AI. Because it will be a lot like the internet. It will be ubiquitous. It'll be everywhere, and it'll be in all the things that we use every day. So how can we start using it now, embrace it to get the most out of it, instead of treating it like a threat?
Right.
In an enterprise, because every boardroom in the world has been talking about an AI strategy. And there's not a lot of times in my career, 25 years, there's not been a lot of moments like this where every boardroom was all on fire for this one thing.
Yeah.
AI is that thing right now. So this is our moment. And so if the board is talking about it, the C-suite has got to be outlining an AI strategy. It's incumbent upon all of us to make sure that we bring every employee along. Now, it's also important for us to address the elephant in the room. When you think about the CX space, the contact center specifically, where there have been thousands, tens of thousands of agents, there will not be 2 or 3 years, there will not be tens and hundreds of thousands and millions of agents globally. That particular role will shrink. AI agents will take on a lot of that work. But that doesn't mean that there's massive layoffs coming. It means that, we deal with attrition, we deal with a lot of those sort of systemic issues in the contact center that over a period of 2 or 3 years, the workforce should be right-sized so that humans are still in the mix, but they have been upskilled to be the supervisor of the AI. And this is a big mindset shift for a lot of us. So we get off of the treadmill of managing workforce, constantly replacing agents, taking them through new hire training, only to see them leave within 6 months. That's no longer how we'll spend our time. We need to be spending our time upskilling those human agents to supervise the AI so that it produces the optimal outcomes. And then, the operations teams that have historically played more of a back office role, they need to be the ones that are creating training because they understand the business, they understand the technology. They are the ones that should be training the AI agents, providing some observability. We can see all these things before we release it into the wild. We see what the AI is going to do in any given situation. We need to run simulations, and so these are all new jobs.
So all those like customer service calls that you do, when they're like, this
Yes.
call is being recorded, we can feed that
That's right.
in, but the outcome's still the same, like
100%.
not our problem.
And instead of it only being on 2 or 3% of the total interactions, and then I subjectively score it according to this scorecard, and nobody's consistent, and then I hope that the agent will get coached with the scoring, that is completely gone away. That doesn't mean those jobs are completely eliminated. When you put AI into the hands of those QA analysts that have done those jobs since I was an agent on the phone, they become insights managers. Nobody knows what you want from an interaction better than those people. So you put them into a world where they have AI, but they have insights on 100% of the interactions, and they feed back that to the operations teams that are constantly tuning those AI models. These are jobs of the future, but the future's now. And so kind of going back to your original question, what's the message coming from the C-suite? Is it, I heard this morning, we need to do more with less? That is not the right answer. The right answer is we are going to put really the world's most powerful tool into your hands. We want your feedback on where it's working, where it's not, and let's get through this together. Let's implement this together. Over time, this is not about job elimination. This is not about headcount reduction. And if that's the focus of your C-suite, the focus on cost reduction will ultimately hurt your employees and it will hurt your customers. Your customers will ultimately go to the competitor. Now, if over 3 years' time of us learning and iterating, start small, learn, add, and evolve with it as you go, 2 or 3 years from now, your workforce will look completely different. You will have an army full of AI agents, and you will have some highly skilled AI professionals that are now adding tremendous value to your broader business. So instead of the contact center being the cost center, it's now a value center because you are creating amazing customer experiences. Your employees are actually in jobs that they like. If we think about absenteeism and attrition in the contact center, that's not an indication of these are great jobs that people love. These are low-paying, high-stress jobs. We're actually delivering on what employees need. It's just going to look different. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us as leaders to really make sure we set them up for success, and we communicate that effectively.
So you offer a solution. There's probably, how many of you have a solution? How many of you have an AI solution? Show of hands. Bunch of you. I know nothing. I only know Claude and Chat and a few others. So if I was going to implement a solution into my company or a platform product into my company, what are the questions as an operations manager I should be asking? Because a lot of us just don't know. What we're getting is the solution. This is what it's going to do, but we don't know the right questions to ask. So I was hoping you would give us some, because in our conversation, I'm like, I don't even know what I would ask you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know what I would ask you as a leader in this.
Yeah, and I live in this world, and I will tell you, I do not envy the buyers of today's AI technology, because there's so much noise. Everybody's saying the same thing. And how do you discern like who's the right fit and who's not the right fit? It's very challenging. And I was a technology buyer my last 5 years at Verizon. I bought a lot of good technology. I bought even more bad technology. Bad meaning it didn't deliver on the promise that the sales team gave me. And so what I would recommend to answer your question is you have to really understand, what do my customers need? I think this time in our careers, we really need to double down on being customer-centric. It's not a poster on the wall. It's not something that ends up in your CEO's quarterly earnings report. This is, what do my customers need? And this requires us to understand the customer journey. And a lot of people don't like that, because it takes a lot of time to map out these customer journeys. But this is huge. You have to understand, where does the friction exist in my business today? Where am I failing my customer? Where am I at risk of them going to my competitor? You take the time to map that out to understand, where can I ultimately reduce the effort that I'm requiring my customer just to do business with me. And this is where, if I apply AI to that particular point of friction, what is the outcome? It's either going to reduce cost, it's going to drive more loyalty, which means more revenue, and ultimately we're all on the hook for these measurable outcomes. And so I have to first understand, the operations team really needs to understand, what is my customer journey, where are those points of failure, and how can the right technology address those points of failure? It's not about buying AI and bolting it on. That's not what I'm describing here. I'm talking about a complete overhaul of your operating framework, where you're getting out of this constant cycle of replacing human beings and constantly chasing, coaching employees to do better next time. No, it's being very proactive in understanding what's happening on 100% of the interactions, and then through a source, usually it's through an RFI and RFP, investing the time and energy to make sure that your AI partner is the one that fits the needs of your business. There's no one size fits all. I will tell you that ASAPP is a partner by way of our customer experience platform, where across 100% of interactions, voice, chat, messaging, ASAPP wants to be at the top of that. We want to be a partner that works very closely with you to drive these measurable business outcomes. And we do that by way of really understanding your people, understanding your processes. We've got great technology. ASAPP has great technology, but that's only part of the equation. ASAPP wants to, in a very consultative way, wants to come alongside you as a partner to understand, what do those journeys, customer journeys, look like? Where are the friction points? How can we, through our experience working with enterprises of all shapes and sizes, how can we apply the AI in a way that ultimately gives you a competitive advantage? And I think you have to be willing to invest the time and energy, whether it's through an RFI, RFP, to entertain. The last one I participated in, there were 30 vendors in the
Wow.
RFI, which was massive.
Yeah.
We ultimately won that deal because of all the things that I mentioned, but I just suggest, because there is so much noise and it's very difficult to separate the noise from the signal, do your due diligence, because all these AI solutions are not created equal.
So I'm just being mindful of the time, and I would love to give someone an opportunity. If you have a question, we have time for maybe 2 questions. Does anybody have a question for Chris? Nobody? Oh, there you go. Yes? Yes, she's coming right now. Thank you, Vanna.
Thanks, Fran. Thanks. I just had a question on how you're defining what really requires like a human interaction or human engagement versus, hey, this is something I would want to automate through my agents. What's your thought process in kind of defining that?
Yeah, it's a great question, because again, this is new territory for all of us, where we're embarking on this humans assisting AI, and it really is a very bespoke answer. So every organization has points on any given intent. So a reason a customer might interact with your business. There are points in which we do not want the machine to make that decision. It could be a credit, some sort of discount. I work with an insurance company who deals with death benefits. That was one where they did not want the AI interacting on that sensitive interaction at all. And so on a case-by-case basis, we look at these intents and say, okay, at what point will the decision-making confidence be exceeded for the AI to autonomously handle this? Sometimes it is a credit. Sometimes it's, where data may not be available for the AI. So what we do, what we call human in the loop, instead of just escalating that fully to a human to take it over, we actually allow the human agent to interact with the AI. So the AI will go to the human agent, human in the loop, and we'll ask, okay, here's the situation. It'll briefly summarize it. And this happens in their CRM, whether it's Salesforce, messaging platform. So we want to be in the screen that they're already using. And so given that predetermined criteria where we don't want the AI to autonomously handle this alone, we will now go and we will speak to that agent for approval, for guidance. That human agent will go back to the AI with the answer, with the supervision, if you will. And the AI will take on the rest of the conversation. That's so different than anything we've done in the past because it was always either or. Let the virtual assistant handle it as far as it can go. When it can't handle it, it will escalate to the human. No, we don't escalate unless it's something that we've decided that we just don't want the AI to do at all. But we have to go through on an intent-by-intent basis. But here's the key. Over time, we will learn what did the human guide the AI to do. And once we have a high degree of confidence that that leads to a great customer experience, a great business outcome, we can now essentially program, we can tune the model so that the AI, while human in the loop was there in the past, over time we allow that trusted AI to handle it fully autonomously. Does that make sense? Okay. But it's a journey, and every company is different because every company has different types of customer interactions and a different level of, confidence in the AI's ability to handle it. One more?
Yeah, I think we need to summarize, but what I'm hearing is we're still going to be the boss. They are not going to rule us. We are not going to be their slaves. They're going to be ours.
Yeah, I don't buy into the AI doomsday stuff. I just don't.
Well, I'd like to just get your final takeaway because I do have to run to the next room. So do you have one last thing you want to share?
One last thing to share would be make sure that we're capitalizing on this moment and we're investing in our employees in a way that brings them along with us. In the last 2 years, I've worked with probably 24 enterprises, and I've only seen one that did this well. We've sort of gotten into this mindset of we buy technology so that we can automate away all the interactions, and that has never delivered. We've never really sort of put our money where our mouth is and said, I value our employees and I'm putting AI into the hands of, every one of you employees because it's going to make us bigger and better and stronger in front of our customers, which is really a form of job security if you think about it. So as leaders, as much as possible, from your C-suite down, have a communication plan about your AI strategy and make sure it's super clear on how This is actually upskilling and helping employees become even better versions of themselves.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to Chris.